I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is Monday, May 4th, Elmhurst City Council meeting. I'd like to have everybody stand for a Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In order to start the meeting, we have to first establish a quorum. I'd ask our lovely clerk, Patty Spencer, to call the roll.
I love it. Thank you, Mayor. Gutenkopf.
Here.
Pezza.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Bram.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Nybo.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
All right, we have a quorum. Second on the agenda is a proclamation for Municipal Clerks Week in Elmhurst. I'd ask Clerk Patty Spencer to meet me over at the podium. Right. The municipal clerk position in the state of Illinois and throughout the whole country is a huge position. They keep the records, the documents of our fine city. They make sure that they make the mayor look good and the agendas are perfect. And I can't say enough about what the clerk position does. And the clerk that we have in this town is an excellent one. That's Patty Spencer. So with this proclamation, I would like to dedicate this proclamation to the municipal clerks and to Patty Spencer. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists in countries throughout the world, and whereas the office of municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful in their neutrality and impartiality and rendering equal service to all. And whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center and functions of local government and community. Whereas the municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, province, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Peter P. DeCiani III, Mayor of the City of Elmhurst, do hereby proclaim a week of May 3rd through May 9th, 2009 as Municipal Clerks Week in the City of Elmhurst, and extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Patty Spencer, and to all the municipal clerks for the vital services that they perform and exemplary dedication to the community that they serve. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Mayor DeCiani, for recognizing Municipal Clerks Week. I would like to acknowledge my deputy clerk, Erin Vanderwall, and ask her to stand and be recognized. Erin serves as the president of the Municipal Clerks of DuPage County, and tonight her reappointment is listed on the consent agenda. I think it's item E? No. Okay. It's been my honor to serve as city clerk, and I look forward to another 4 years to serve the community that I love. Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
All right, item 3 on the agenda would be a receipt of written communication and or petitions. If anybody has any type of written communication or petitions they would like to file, please file them now with our lovely Patty Spencer, City Clerk. And it looks like we have no petitions to be filed or communications. I will then go to item 4, which is the public forum part of our meeting, which allows people to come and speak about any issue they have regarding Elmhurst, and we encourage that. So if anybody would like to speak in public forum, please feel free to raise a hand and take the microphone. We've got microphones on each side of the room here. Anybody like to speak for public forum? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Al. Naturally, you know the rules, 3 minutes, name and address. Everybody knows Al Brinkmeyer, great guy.
My name is Al Brinkmeyer. I live at 384 Prairie in Elmhurst. I'm here to make a brief comment about item 6B. I would ask that you deliberate very carefully with regard to the appointment. Your process requires advice and consent by all of you on the City Council. The mayor has made a wise choice, but each of you is obligated under the advice and consent clause of the United States Constitution to fully vet that appointment. So I would ask that you very deliberately take a moment and think about that, and in fact, perhaps continue this for 2 weeks so that you can fully advise and consent to this appointment. I think we need full transparency, and I know that all of you are obligated to that, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Anybody else? Okay, seeing that there's nobody else for public comment, I will then go to the next item, item 5, which is the consent agenda. I need a motion and a second to accept the contents of the consent agenda. Alderman Gutenkopf and Alderman York. Okay. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Alderman Rose?
Item G.
Item G. Anybody else? Alderman?
I was item G, too.
Item G as well. Okay. Item G will be removed. And I have a motion to accept the contents of the consent agenda minus item G. And that will be done by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, that passes. I need a motion and a second to approve the contents of the consent agenda minus items G. Motion by Alderman Hipskin, second by Alderman Wagner. All right, any discussion? No discussion? Call the roll on this one?
Call the roll
Okay.
first, then.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Hipskin.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
All righty, next on the agenda would be the item G. I would need a motion and a second on that item, which is an ordinance adopting an official comprehensive plan for the city of Elmhurst.
You don't need
I'm scared. Oh, excuse me, okay,
No.
do I need a motion? All righty.
to ask the
Yeah.
clerk to read
By
the
the
paragraph.
person that pulled it.
By the person that actually pulled it. So Alderman Rose, was it?
We don't do the motion yet, do we?
Well, before the motion, excuse me, we're just going a little ahead.
Okay.
You asked the clerk to read the title of the
Read the title.
item.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay,
I would ask the clerk to read the title of the item, item G.
okay. It's 011-2009, an ordinance adopting an official comprehensive plan for the city of Elmhurst.
Now, can I get a motion, please, in a second? Alderman Rose,
Move acceptance of ordinance O-11-2009.
second from Alderman Gutenkopf. Okay, and discussion on that ordinance? Alderman Rose?
I have pulled this ordinance primarily, I know this evening we are going to do some orientation to issues, but this is such an important piece of work that has occurred, and I know that we have many new aldermen here. So I just wanted to go through a little bit about the comprehensive plan. This is really a very important thing that we are doing. We approved the report last week. I will just go through the comprehensive plan that we are adopting tonight is really the latest planning document for Elmhurst. And the previous plan we adopted almost 20 years ago. So it would be our expectation that any comprehensive plan would last really at least that long. The purpose of the comprehensive plan is really to provide a roadmap to future decision makers, to ourselves as well as future decision makers, about what Elmhurst should be, how it can grow, what are the opportunities. It really is a vision for where we want to be at some point. And by we, I want to compliment the fact that there were hundreds of citizens who participated in over 30 different meetings in the past 2 years. But what is really important is a second, less understood purpose of the comprehensive plan is really primarily to it assists in guiding decisions around zoning matters. I think that's an important thing to understand, especially as it relates to variance requests. All persons on the dais, all decision makers about zoning, really, which includes all of us as well as the commission and the committee, are required by law to take the comprehensive plan into account when we vote on any issue. However, for example, we do not slavishly obey it, but we simply can't willy-nilly go against its aims. That really is a misuse of the comprehensive plan. It represents our best thinking of where we are. It should hold us in good stead for the next 15 to 20 years. We shouldn't ignore what citizens are saying today, but we don't know what the challenges are they're going to face us in the next 20 years. So it is not law, but we have to consider it when we are making law, and that's a distinction that I think we need to remember. And lastly, I just wanted to give some highlights for new aldermen because I think this is really important. For example, this represents what citizens thought in this community. That one, we ought to continue mixed-use development in downtown. We need to maintain strong neighborhoods. We need to provide adequate parking facilities in commercial areas, but these parking facilities must be sensitive to the surrounding area, should not dominate the landscape. We should encourage alternate modes of transportation, such as walking, biking, mass transit. Future decision makers should continue to diversify the economy to expand the tax base by reducing reliance on property tax, maintaining high-quality infrastructure, and I thought this was interesting, by providing financial incentives to not support reinvestment, but also apparently citizens in this community believe we should provide that so that for home ownership as well in some ways. Upgrading municipal services, we should encourage a wide variety of housing stocks, maintain 10% of our housing as affordable, encourage sustainable building practices, and continue to enforce appropriate property maintenance and code adherence. Preserve our natural resources, encourage sustainable development, and provide update codes so that we think about including sustainability practice in any new public buildings. That was a particular issue that the comprehensive plan really made use of, and I think the last thing that citizens of Elmhurst said they really wanted was to encourage extensive buffering landscaping in any kinds of development as it abutted single family. So I think this is an important thing that we're doing, and I would encourage all new aldermen take a look at this. It will be lovely nighttime reading for you. Put you right to sleep, perhaps, but it's really a remarkable document. So just wanted to call our attention to it. This is the first time you would have had a chance to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Rose. Alderman Hipskin?
I'm good.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion on the issue, on the motion? Okay. Can I ask the clerk call the roll, please?
Rose.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda, item 6, are reports and recommendations of appointed and elected officials. First item is A. I'd like to give you updates as to some of the things that we've been doing. Last week, we had a group go down to Springfield. Myself, City Manager Borchert, Alderman Morley, Alderman Nybo, Alderman Leader, and did I miss anybody? I think we got everybody there. Oh, and Alderman Mulliner. And we actually went and lobbied on behalf of DuPage mayors and managers to talk about revenue sources from Springfield that may be affecting Elmhurst. I thought overall it was a good 2 days, 2 days well spent, although we did find that Springfield is a unique place to visit and is not the most functional place. I found that out last year myself, but in the end we were able to get something done. So we're hoping in the end we've expressed as municipal leaders that if there is in fact revenue streams coming from Springfield, that our city would like its fair share, whether it's a push by Governor Quinn for a tax increase on income, or whether it's a user tax, whatever the fees that might be coming from Springfield, we just want to make sure that we as a city and municipality would like to make sure that we get our fair share. As we all know, the economic climate is tough right now for the city. Our sales tax is taking a huge hit. Revenue sources are very low, so we want to make sure whatever we can do as a municipality, we do. We're in front of those legislators. We met with Representatives Rebelletti and Biggins and Senator Cronin, Senator Pankow, and even met with other leaders as well throughout the legislature to let them know that we're here, and it's important that they understand that municipal government is just as important as the state government. We all work together. We're all affected by each other's budgets, and we want to make sure that they know we're here, and we need their help as well. So. The next on the agenda, but I would like to talk about this, is city attorney situation. I have, as the new mayor, I ran on leadership, unity, and solutions as my campaign, and I think we are in need of new leadership at this level. I have spoken with City Attorney Ken Kubisa, who has offered his resignation as our city attorney, pending the approval of our new attorney. But I believe we have the majority of the folks willing to vote for this issue, but there are a handful of people that would like some time. It is the mayor's role in the city of Elmhurst, founded by our forefathers, to have the mayor do the vetting, do the interviewing. I have interviewed 4 municipal law firms, all of which are top-notch firms, firms like Ansel Glick, firms like Barry Moss and Dave Freeman, firms like Pat Bond, and many of these firms refer their municipal business to a gentleman by the name of Don Storino. And speaking with Don Storino himself, I asked him if he would consider putting a proposal together for Elmhurst, and he gave us not only a proposal but the most competitive proposal. I think he's a very, very qualified person. He represents many municipalities throughout DuPage and Cook County. Fine man, and our current city attorney is a fine man. But this is a professional decision on my part as a mayor. But it is something I would like to give this council one more week to look at and do their due diligence so that they can come together as a city council and elect our next city attorney, or nominate and actually vote for our next city attorney. I believe after spending 3 weeks interviewing these firms that he is the best of the best. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought him to this council. He's got a firm roughly about 20 attorneys deep. Many of the council people have actually spoken with him personally already and feel comfortable, but there's some that haven't. So I would offer 2 dates that would be acceptable to the new law firm, where he would actually be willing to come to City Hall here and meet with you. We would have to basically do this with a 48-hour notice and have a special meeting. So it would be either Thursday, depending on what your thoughts are, or next Monday, which I was thinking we would do a special meeting next Monday where we could actually vote on the issue as well too. But I want to make sure that we give everybody the time to do their homework, make sure he's qualified. This is not a situation where I'm bringing in my best friend, the real estate attorney that I think would like to get a job. I met this gentleman about 3 weeks ago after vetting 4 firms, and ironically, 3 of the firms in DuPage County pointed me to this gentleman as a referral source for needs that they have that they could not handle in-house. So I think he's very capable, very fine person. independent of our community, which I think is important right now. We really need somebody to come in that has no ties. And I ran as an independent candidate. I won as an independent candidate, and I would like to bring that independence to the community and bring this council together to have an attorney that we feel comfortable with. And I think giving that extra week is giving everybody ample time to do their due diligence so they feel comfortable. And I would hope that's a sign of how the leadership in this community will be moving forward over the next 4 years. So we're thinking next Thursday between maybe 4 to 6, or this coming Thursday between 4 and 6, or next Monday we're going to call a special meeting, and that would be where we would have him available between maybe 5:30 and 7:30 prior to the meeting. So I don't know if there's any type of if people have any conflicts at work at all on Thursday. If they do, and maybe Monday would be better. Just trying to, go ahead.
Monday, I would go for Monday.
Monday?
I do have it planned.
I'm out of town on Thursday.
Okay, so Monday's good for everybody? And in the meantime, Mr. Storino requested phone calls. If there's anybody who wants to do diligence and call him directly, go ahead, Mr. Alderman Morley.
If Mr. Storino's up for it, I think both dates would work.
Okay.
That would be, again, in an effort to give everyone an opportunity to meet him, because there might be some who have a conflict on Mondays as well. Plus, if there is any additional questions that anybody has on a Monday, it might be difficult to get those answers before the vote.
I'm sure I can arrange that. He's available both days, so I think we should be able to arrange that without a problem. Will that, Michael Brown? Alderman Brown?
Yes, thanks. My suggestion would be to only have it the one day, Monday. I think that would, one, we already are committed for every Monday of every week. Since my assumption is we're not doing committee meetings next week, I would also like to recommend that we would do it at a little bit later of a time frame where we would normally be coming to committee meetings as well, something around the 6:30 or 7 o'clock time frame,
Okay.
if at all possible.
Okay. Anyone else? Any suggestions? Okay. I know City Manager Borchard wanted to actually use that meeting to actually work on. City Manager Borchard, would you like to mention what you were talking about doing as well, so we kind of make the best time of our time?
Thank you, Mayor DeCiani. I think the carry forward elected officials would recognize that the city staff does seek every Monday night opportunity to work with the city council. So we could use that Monday night as a special council meeting and go over committee of the whole matters, which I'll brief the council on tonight, specifically the Hahn Street project and the Addison Street DevCom project, where the last city council was, what had been approved, what was identified as potentially opportunities going forward. We could use that Monday night for a briefing and for council staff discussion on that matter, but certainly could do a delayed start to allow the council to work with the issue of the attorney at 7 or 7:30.
Very good. Very good. Alderman Healy?
If we had questions that we wanted to submit in advance of either a Thursday or a Monday meeting, should we do that through the city manager, do that through you, just to give an idea of what we might be thinking of the information we're looking for?
You could do it through City Manager Borchard, probably be the easiest, and then we could probably directly forward. Would you want feedback before the meeting? Because we
No,
could actually,
not before the meeting, but
sure,
just so
absolutely.
when if I show up for the meeting,
Right,
they
they're
already know
prepared.
what some of the answers I'm looking for.
That would be great, Alderman. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? Alderman Leader.
So, as I understand it, Mr. Storino will be here on Thursday as well as Monday. No, because isn't that what Alderman Morley asked for? That's why I was a little confused.
The only problem if we have him here both days would be we would probably need a committee of the whole, or we'd have to have a quorum in order to have him here Thursday. Unless you wanted to meet with him individually, where it wouldn't violate an Open Meetings Act naturally. City Manager Borchard.
Yeah. If I think anything can work here, but I would suggest that in case a majority of the council would show up on Thursday or Monday, we would post both days as a meeting, but as long as Mr. Storino was here and any of the elected officials that wish to come were here, they could have their discussion. There's no action going to be taken on Thursday other than for that discussion and that vetting. That could happen with whoever would choose to wish, and would suggest that maybe Mayor DeCiani identify the time frame and be clear about that. We could get a notice to everybody in that regard, and then do the same on Monday for 5:30 or 6 o'clock to 7 or 7:30 for a discussion, vetting, and then maybe a special council meeting at 7:30 with whatever ends up on that agenda, and for a discussion of items that are appropriate for the full city council to review, which would be, I think, at least the Han Street project, an update on that project, and an update on the DevCom project. So I would suggest we would send out a notice for two times, Thursday and Monday.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's fair enough. I think that would, Alderman Pezza, go ahead.
I just have one concern. If we have this meeting next Monday evening discussing some of these other items, will it be without council, the meeting?
It's only a status update, right?
Go ahead. Manager Porcher.
I think I'm hearing that there'll be a vetting for a week, and then there's a Monday council meeting opportunity at that 7:30 city council meeting. I'm thinking perhaps if the vetting is complete, subject to the council's deliberations and the dialogue between the council and the mayor, that the mayor perhaps on Thursday would put on the agenda for Monday what's been postponed, as I understand this evening, the appointment of Attorney Donald Storino. That'd be an agenda item for Monday. That'd be one of the first items on the agenda. If it's approved, there's an attorney. If there's not, we could continue on with the information exchange of staff reports to the council, or not. That's a prerogative of the chair and of the council. But potentially there would be an agenda item and potentially an appointment, and therefore potentially an attorney.
Right. And in everybody's packet, or actually on the packet, we had all the bio information on the attorney. What was given to us also today was the attorney's proposal with his hourly rate, et cetera. There's no, it's an at-will appointment, so there's no contractual term to this, which I think is nice. He's not asking for a retainer, although he said he'd work on one if we'd like him to. I don't like to give lawyers retainers. I'd like to work with our own money. So I think we've got a win-win. We've got a excellently qualified person, individual, versed in the municipal law area, represents many municipalities, great rate, and flexibility with all of our legal services as well, too. If we want to bid out labor or certain parts of law, he's given us that ability where it does not go through his firm. He does not make a markup on those fees. I think given our budget restraints right now, we really need to watch that as well. Make sure we're maximizing not only the resources, but the dollars, too. Alderman Mulliner?
I guess my comment is I would prefer to do this just on one day, just because I think it's important for all of us to be here and hear the questions and concerns that everybody has. I think that's our responsibility as a city council to vet this properly, and I think it gives us an opportunity to do that by doing this just on Monday. And we all know that Monday nights, we've committed our lives to Monday nights, that we're going to be here. So I would prefer to just do this on Monday night. That way everybody has a chance to hear everybody.
First of all, Mr. Mayor, thank you for all of your hard work in listening and offering the additional time. I think is much appreciated. I fail to understand the objection to meeting with Mr. Storino on 2 different days. If it is that much of a hardship, I'll track him down myself. But I think I've heard over the last week that people want to get to understand this gentleman, understand where he comes from. I don't think there's any specific agenda, and I don't know. I guess I'd ask for clarification. Are people worried that the conversation might happen on Thursday that they're unaware of and can't be party to, and they only want it to happen on Monday. If it's the will of the council to only meet with this guy once, great, but if we're talking about transparency and openness, and Mr. Storino is willing to come for 2 days, unless someone can articulate it, I'm finding it hard to understand the objection to meeting with him. And again, if there is some compelling reason, I'll meet with him on my own. I'll track him down and meet with him on my own. I also believe, and I know we're committed to Mondays, but I would have concerns that after people meet with him, what if they have a question on Monday? They've got 35 minutes to track it down before we vote on the guy? You know, I'll do what I need to do to satisfy what I'm looking for. That's why I think Thursday's a good idea, and I think a second bite of the apple on Monday isn't the end of the world either.
Alderman Brown.
Yes, thank you. And I will only speak for myself in regards to that Alderman Morley's question. I already have a commitment for Thursday. I am unable to attend the Thursday meeting. So therefore, I do feel it's very important that every single council member is there to listen to the vetting that's going on and all receive the same answers and what is being discussed. We've already had this information a handful of days in advance. I've already vetted the situation to a certain degree on my own, doing what I can, speaking with the individuals that I can to make sure that I am doing my due diligence. I think Monday is a committed date for all of us as elected officials here. We have a full week to vet the situation even further on our own merits, and we can also submit questions ahead of time. So I think there are various opportunities. I hate to lose the opportunity, since I do have a previous commitment, to be here on Thursday when there will be some questions asked that I might not be able to hear the answers to.
Thank you, Alderman Bram. Anybody else? Okay, so we want to do here. We want to do 2 meetings. We want to do a motion to do 2, or what? My discretion?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Now we can do closed session, 6:30. 6:30 to 7:30, or?
Executive session from 6:30 to 7, an open meeting at 6:30, executive session at 7:30, open meeting.
Okay. Thank you, City Manager Borchardt and Alderman Mulliner. Oh, what's this? I'm sorry.
One quick question.
Yeah.
You said the proposal was available.
Yeah, should be in your information there.
On the dais.
Oh, thank you.
On the dais, and also is the resignation
Excellent.
letter from the city attorney Kubisa as well.
Got it. Thank
Okay.
you. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Yes.
I also just have one.
Alderman Rose, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have one concern, which is the meeting next Monday then, however we do it, if we do 2 meetings or 1. But the meeting next Monday would be devoted solely to this issue. Is that correct?
No. Also, we were going to discuss some of the committee of the whole issues too, correct? City Manager Borchardt?
I would
Han Street?
I would suggest in that we would not have committees yet formed. We would use the opportunity of the Monday night meeting for special council meeting for purposes of the consideration of the attorney appointment. And then, as has been our past practice of using under a council meeting reports and recommendations, that under reports, the city manager would do a report with benefit of city staff on the Han Street project and on the DevCom proposal for Addison and First and Larch improvements. No decisions to be made by the council on those staff reports. They would simply be staff reports to get into details which the council, I think, needs to get into as a council, and potentially from that Monday night council meeting, then matters could be reviewed in more detail at the 4 appropriate committee meetings.
Follow up?
Alderman Rose?
Yeah, my concern is just the timing of committee assignments. We're already behind on that. Are we, when will that be on the agenda? It appears that no committees will be meeting for some amount of time. I'm just curious, my understanding is that they need to be assigned pretty quickly, so I'm curious when that would be.
We will do that at a subsequent meeting.
Follow-up with the
Sure.
the subsequent city council meeting, or when would that, the date of that, when would that be?
Probably subsequent city council meeting would be appropriate.
So today's the 4th. The 18th, is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
All right. All right, so what we will do is, the attorney, Mr. Storino, will be available for phone consult between now and Monday. We will have a special meeting on Monday at 6:30. We will be in closed session in that meeting from 6:30 till 7:30, and then we will have an open session meeting and ideally vote on appointing City Attorney Storino to the City of Elmhurst. Alderman Pezza?
I'm just curious, you said the first portion of that meeting where we will be actually questioning Mr. Storino would be a closed session?
I believe so. Is that appropriate?
Yes, matter.
Yes. Yes, that's appropriate. Yes.
Okay, I'm just concerned because I thought the whole purpose of some questions people had about this was because they wanted this open and transparent, and I thought it was great we were discussing it this evening in public with people and on the cameras. So I'm a little confused as to those who want transparency, yet we're going to be in closed session. Is the closed session just a Q&A with the attorney, or where we will be discussing our thoughts also?
That would be correct. It'd be a Q&A with the attorney, get a comfort level. You'd be able to ask him direct questions, and we would not be voting on that. I don't believe in executive session. We would come out and vote on that in public. So there would be total transparency, and there would be a discussion of ability in the meeting as well, in the open meeting. So, okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. So that's how we'll do it. We'll have a special meeting next week for this particular purpose. I appreciate everyone's willingness to do this, and for the people that were anxious to do this tonight for waiting until next week, and for those that requested the extra time, I appreciate you letting me know where you were at, and again, I would like to really build a strong leadership and with the ability to bring people together with the situation. I think it's important that we have an independent city attorney in the future, which will make everybody feel comfortable. So I thank you for that. All right, next order of business, item C, orientation and issues report from our city manager, Tom Borchert.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council does have a copy of the PowerPoint. We've got a few additional copies. I would report that this PowerPoint presentation and summary of policy and project considerations will be on the city website at the end of the day tomorrow. It was a bit late to get it on the website today, but it will be on tomorrow. I propose to go through the first three quarters or so of this orientation very quickly, and don't intend to spend a lot of time on each slide. Would propose to the council that a lot of the information speaks for itself, and the council and community can go through it at a more leisurely pace at your will. Use it as a reference document going forward. My understanding, talking with Mayor DeCiani, he intends to invite later this evening folks from the community to indicate interest perhaps in serving on a financial special task force to deal with financial matters, which I will summarize at the tail end of this report. This document can serve as a foundation for that information and as a resource for the community to become more familiar with issues of the 2009-2011 City Council going forward. So with that, and I'm at a bit of a disadvantage talking into the microphone looking forward. I can't see your hands behind me. Mayor, if there is a desire to interrupt me, please yell out.
Shall do.
I prefer that than throwing things.
We're not shy.
Let me know and we'll pause and go over those items. So again, I'm going to do an introduction and overview of matters involving the way the city council traditionally does its work, which is by 4 standing committees, but also occasionally with committee of the whole issues relative to broader, more all-encompassing strategic issues, and then a legal side. We'll speak briefly on those matters. The city council and the city staff over the years have developed a rather comprehensive citywide shared commitment to serve, and that's on the elected side as well on the appointed side, and I think that well serves the Elmhurst community. We serve with the 6 pillars of character, and I think it was mentioned earlier tonight, open and transparent. I think that has been a foundation of the way the city of Elmhurst conducts its work. The organization chart is first and foremost the community. It's with the consent of the governed, the residents, that this whole thing works. The mayor and the council elected, the clerk and the treasurer elected. They serve first and foremost, but through a process. You saw this evening the beginning of the process of the mayor appointment and council approval of the city attorney. That's the same process used for the city manager. Frankly, same process for the appointment of the standing committees. And then through the standing committees, the issues are reviewed by the council, and through the city manager's oversight, operational issues of the staff are carried out. The city of Elmhurst does, by governance, have oversight of the tax levy of the library. However, the library is run by a 9-member citizen board, which is appointed by the mayor with the city council approval. That 9-member board really approves the operations side of what happens at the library. The only aspect of city council control and mayor control comes through the appointment of the board and through the approval of the tax levy. The city website, I would suggest, for the community is becoming a more and more significant reference book and document. On the website presently is the city code, the comprehensive plan. Alderman Rose, chairman of the committee, spoke earlier of the comprehensive plan. You've got a hard copy of that as a member of the council, but that whole plan is on the website. The budgets, quarterly financial reports, the most recent citizen survey, financial audits, a local government handbook, a lot of information is on the website, and would refer folks to those documents for that information. And again, as stated, this orientation PowerPoint will be on the website tomorrow. Those 4 standing committees are the Public Works and Buildings Committee, the Public Affairs Safety Committee, Finance, Council Affairs, Administrative Services Committee. The 4th committee is the Development Planning and Zoning Committee. Their names are their names in that that's pretty much the work that they get involved with. Somewhat self-intuitive, and I won't go through the details. In the code book are the actual functions identified, and I'll ask for the council, if they haven't had the opportunity, I'll ask the staff liaisons, which are here to stand as we get to their committee. Serving is staff support to the committees are the lead members of the management team. Serving the Public Works and Buildings Committee are the Director of Public Works, Mike Hughes. He is out of town today, but I believe here is Dennis Stryker, the Director of Water Wastewater. So there's Dennis, and both Dennis and Mr. Hughes will be serving together, along with other staff, the Public Works and Buildings Committee. These are listed some of the areas of oversight and of project that are significant that will be reviewed by this committee in the next several months. And as soon as we have committees appointed, the staff liaisons are anxious to begin working with that committee to vet those issues. The Public Affairs Safety Committee involves itself with a lot of the licensing regulation and public safety matters. Staff liaisons are Brian Berghager, the museum director, who's in the back, if Brian could stand up, and the two chiefs, Steve Neubauer, police chief, and Chief Michael Kopp. Likewise, many of the matters before the committee are moving forward, and the committee liaisons would certainly enjoy the opportunity to work with our new committees and new council going forward. Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services. Serving as liaison before this committee is Director Marilyn Gaston and Assistant Director Tom Trozine. Marilyn and Tom, thank you very much, and they both have helped me significantly in putting this PowerPoint together, particularly the financial slides, which will come a bit later. Again, a lot of policy considerations before the Finance Committee. Every year, the City Council of the past has suggested that all revenues for the city should be looked at on an annual basis. There's the revenue analysis review. It's a comprehensive review done first by the staff with the committee, and then a report offered up to the full City Council. Last committee is the Development, Planning, and Zoning Committee. Staff liaisons on the Planning Zoning side is John Sed, Director of Planning, Zoning, and Economic Development. And then on the building side, Fire Chief Kopp serves as our building commissioner. You could stand up a second time. I think I'm losing power on this. I think I've lost power.
No.
Push me forward to legal, Tom. Legal we'll spend some time with at a future meeting. We did provide a City Council orientation, and we'll make sure the City Council orientation is also on the website. This has been prepared over the years, and we look forward to reviewing this orientation with new city attorney. A lot of this, I think, is boilerplate, but yet very important information for the City Council to be aware of as it relates to council procedures and practices. The second page of this does have the table of contents, conflicts of interest, ethics, zoning administration, land use controls, and the freedom of information state statute, which Elmhurst follows. So we'll get it. We've got the handbook. You've got the raw material. We'll make sure there is an opportunity to review that with the city attorney at the right time. Going forward, there are, as I suggested earlier, some more overarching strategic issues which arguably could better be vetted with the full City Council at the same time. Annually, the City Council does this with the budget process and with certain larger economic development projects, and I would suggest that would be the case for the budget and for the Central Business District, which has been reviewed on a more committee of the whole basis, And the two projects I spoke of, the Hahn Street Development Project that has been approved by the past council, but going now through a process of zoning review, seeking a planned development permit. The Zoning and Planning Commission has completed its review. They are meeting shortly with the city attorney's office relative to the recommendation they need to make for the city council as they feel they should, but they need to make a recommendation for the council to consider. We'll review that, and then the First Street, the Addison Avenue development. This is the project that has been suggested, proposed by the DevCom development team that involves work on Addison and on the corner of Larch and First, and on the corner of First and Addison. Suggested at least 4 phases of revitalization and development. We would propose to do that in a committee of the whole basis. The Central Business District does have annual review of matters involving the streetscaping in the Central Business District. Public plazas are being redeveloped. Schiller Court is being redeveloped. And in the budget, there is the potential of a cultural campus, and the development of that needs to be reviewed with the City Council in a committee of the whole format. Again, as I mentioned, there is the Hahn Street project in the process of going forward. And lastly, from a committee of the whole perspective, the First Street Addison Avenue development. What I would propose to spend a little more time on are the following few slides, just a few slides left, but dealing with the budget review. Revenues and expenses, the operating budget, and 5-year capital budget. This document is on the city website. I believe the whole city council, certainly the past council, I believe the new council now has been provided a hard copy of the budget document. Probably the largest policy matter which the city council reviews on an annual basis is the budget. This past cycle, the past council approved a budget and handed that budget over to this council for your management, your oversight. Would explain that that budget did have significant cuts from what had been previously services or areas of service that the community expected or had come to understand as a norm, but just couldn't be provided, and significant cuts were made in the budget to provide for a modest contribution to the general fund balance as it related to the limited and significantly throttled revenues that are coming to the city of Elmhurst. The budget cuts that were made are summarized there, and they do include throttled salary increases, which we'll review with the City Council in executive session as it relates to those details. Hiring review that's now moved into a hiring freeze, and then significant deferrals, elimination of some services, use of working cash fund that really can't be used again. That working cash fund has been brought down to about the minimum that it can be brought down to, which leaves the 09-10 council with not much of a reserve to utilize. Therefore, the pressure is going to be to operate on next year's expenditures within the range of next year's reasonably expected revenues. What does that look like? In the budget document, we do a 2-year operating budget and a 5-year capital budget. So on the operating budget, you can see here, if you look at the proposed 09-10, total revenues, some $48 million, total expenditures, a little less, in the 48 million range, and the excess of revenues and other sources over expenditures is a modest 109,000. That's an estimate, obviously, of 09-010. What's going to happen on the revenues and what's going to happen on the expenditures. It's a plan. On the expenditure side, staff can work probably more aggressively to make the estimate become reality as opposed to the revenue side. The revenue side, we're limited to the way revenues are created, and in most cases, the city does not control that. The only control the city has on revenues is on the tax levy. As I mentioned, many of the cuts in the budget for 09-10 and many of the sources of revenue for 09-10 can't be used again. So 2010-11, it's anticipated that as presently identified, the services the community is expecting and the revenues that are projected, the city budget will be short over $4 million on revenues to expenditures. We don't anticipate from a staff perspective, obviously, that the city council will let that happen. I identify for you that we need to review with the mayor's task force and with the committee and with the city council what will be the action for 2010-2011. What revenues perhaps will be considered, what services will be considered to be expendable, to be curtailed or further throttled or eliminated. Next slide identifies one of the bigger reasons that the Elmhurst general fund is suffering, in addition to the general economy, which is not immune. Elmhurst is not immune to. The general economy is certainly in the news every day. It's affecting all expenditures, and as expenditures are taxed, it's reducing Elmhurst revenues. The largest source of revenue to the city's general fund is sales tax. And this illustrates the history of just the 1% sales tax, which is tracked. You've got real history in gray, and then we've identified the consumer price index in blue. Thank you, Mr. Trozine. Had the sales tax continued to track the way the consumer price index has tracked, the sales tax would be, at that point, slightly over $14 million. But it didn't. It has dropped consistently since 98-99. I'm sorry, since 99 2000. It's dropped while the consumer price index being a reasonable estimate of the city's expenditures, not unlike a reasonable estimate of a family's expenditures. Gasoline goes up, food goes up, travel goes up, electricity goes up. All expenses are going up. That's the consumer price index. So the city's expenses are going up in blue, but our sales tax revenue is going down. That's spread between 98 and 99, when the general fund was benefited by 10.6 million. Now in 08-09, the general fund is benefited by 9.7 million, actually $900,000 less over 10 years, as opposed to an increase. Had the consumer price index gone up, that gap between the upper blue line and the lower gray line is $4.6 million. It's coincidental, but it's about the money that the city's general fund is short, if you recall the projection for next year. Another slide illustrates, our next slide illustrates a tax levy. Past practice, and I support the past practice of the City Council, has been to not use property tax if it wasn't needed. The school district relies on property tax. The Park District relies on property tax. Property tax is the more significant source of revenue for those two sister governmental agencies, the park and the school, and in addition, the city's own sister organization, the library. They rely almost predominantly on property tax. The city has got many other sources of revenue, and therefore the city councils of the past, I believe appropriately, have said, let's not use property tax for the city if we can avoid it, allow the other taxing jurisdictions to use the property tax. So here's about 10 years of tax levy history. The dark blue on the bottom is the city's property tax that flows to the general fund. The goldenrod and the green, if you will, are those portions of the property tax which the city levies that go to pay obligations of the city to pay police and fire pensions, which are created by the state General Assembly as they set police and fire pensions and set those obligations on cities and villages that have to pay for those pensions. Certainly the cities and villages have benefited the police and fire service, but it's a bit of a disconnect in that the General Assembly sets the parameters of those pension benefits. Those pension benefits have become more and more expensive as the General Assembly has been more and more generous with pension benefits. Certainly our Elmhurst police and Elmhurst firefighters work hard every day and they deserve their compensation package, but it has become a bit disproportional relative to the ability of the general fund to get a fair share of those property tax dollars. You can see the general fund in 1998 versus the general fund in 2008. If you look at just the dark blue, general fund there, 1998 versus the general fund 10 years later, the increase goes from $3.1 million to $3.178 million, $62,000. That's all the general fund has benefited in tax levy increases over those years. Go back and you can recall the consumer price index. Certainly the expenses have gone up significantly more than $62,000 in 10 years. How does this relate to the just released property tax bills? I got mine. I'm sure you all got yours. The EAV of York Township and Addison Township went up, as we understand it, about 8%, 8 to 9% overall. The city of Elmhurst did not increase its property tax levy in dollars because the general EAV of both York and Addison Township went up almost 8% or over 8% in both cases. It drives down the property tax rate. This illustrates the real property tax rates of DuPage County from top to bottom, and you can see as a result of a very frugal, I believe, and appropriate past practice of not using property tax if at all possible. Elmhurst tax rate is, when you roll in the fire rate as well, is second lowest of all of DuPage County. That's apples to apples comparison. You look at apples to apples comparison on services, I think it's a flip-flop. On services, Elmhurst is receiving services at the top in most cases, and in many cases the top relative to service, but on property tax we're way at the bottom. Just as a what if the city of Elmhurst tax rate was 36 cents as opposed to 24 cents, Elmhurst would benefit by nearly $3 million of needed revenue to finance the general fund, and our tax rate would be over Hinsdale, but still less than Glen Ellen. We'd go from the bottom up one community with such an increase. How does this look on a total Elmhurst property tax bill? The city is the least of the local jurisdictions, certainly. We've lumped the township and the College of DuPage together. If you separate those, they'd be a little bit individually less. But you've got the general understanding of how that tax dollar bill gets divided up. And again, the city in the general fund doesn't take a lot of the tax dollar bite. That's because the city is benefited by many other sources of revenue. I don't mean to exclude that. There is food and beverage tax, sales tax, motor fuel tax, state income tax, building permit fees and revenues. There's a lot of other revenues that flow into the general fund. But on a property tax perspective, this is how it rolls out. The next slide illustrates really what's been happening over the last 10 years with the general fund. The other funds of the city are in reasonably solid fiduciary status. The general fund is a fund that's in trouble. There is no doubt it's in trouble. For the last 10 years, the revenues to the general fund have been less than what the expenditures are, with the exception of those 3 footnotes, which are basically the Governmental Accounting Service Board's requirements to change the way the city books sales tax and books obligations. Those required changes in accounting by the National Governmental Standards Board caused the general fund to look like it was more solid or had more revenues that particular year than it really did. So those are footnoted. Absent those footnotes, every one of these years, over the last 10 years, the top line, which indicates the fund balance, is going down. The City Council has a past practice of saying, from an operations perspective, maintain in your general fund balance 3 to 4 months of non-capital dollars as a balance, 3 to 4 months. So we identify that fund balance range goal and track the actual general fund balance. It has been sliding down, but it has been above the line until rather recently. So the council has used with the staff together, I think, used that fund balance in an appropriate fashion to balance the budget, waiting for the economy to come back, waiting for the economy to come back. We're still waiting for the economy to come back. We've been using the fund balance. We've been using the fund balance. We've not been adjusting in a balancing fashion enough to balance. So we've got the X factor. Revenues down, expenses continuing to go up, and the fund is in trouble. The general fund is 68% salary and benefits. That gap, if you will, projected in 10-11 is about $4.2 million between the projected fund balance and the minimum of the range goal. So we're out of balance, slightly over $4 million, which is about 10%. There's lots of ways to make budget cuts and to make modest revenue adjustments and then to identify what things are going to look like. But 10% is a huge shortfall. The general fund is about 220 employees, so 10% is when the fund is 68% salary and benefits. It's going to take 10% staff reductions if it's done on the expense side. That's from 70 police officers, it's -7. That's at least 1, maybe 2 officers a shift, less patrol. Fire department, 44 full-time, that's 4 to 5 employees. That means an entirely different minimum manning level for the fire department relative to responding to fires. The chief would not allow me to allow him to send the firefighters to a community event in an unsafe fashion. So there would need to be adjustments in how response is made, but it would not be to the level that it presently is at. And the police and fire is over 60% of the general fund, so what's left would need to be made up with public works employees and city hall employees. I'm suggesting there's not going to be reasonable cuts which the community is going to believe acceptable from my perspective. What's left is about $7.5 million in contractual services, but that is in areas of police and fire dispatch, purchase of electricity, contract ambulance service, contract rubbish collection service, services that are contracted for because they're cheaper contracted than provided in-house, but nonetheless are still very important contracted services that the community can't go without. So there's definitely a problem, but there is a very significant ability of the Elmhurst community to pay in many different ways, and I do look forward to working with the task force and with the council to identify what perhaps would be proper cuts versus what perhaps would be proper revenues. We have provided a bit of a self-imposed calendar on this very important policy document, the city budget. This has been the past practice of significant events on a calendar. It's only May, but I know how time goes by so quickly, especially in June, July, and August, where there's vacations and folks are appropriately taking some time off. There's two dates that are not set by the city council or our past practice in a self-imposing fashion. Those two dates are the tax levy, which is set by the state statute. General Assembly says that the tax levy by cities and villages needs to be approved by the third Monday in December and then brought forward to the county that levies those taxes. So we've got a tax levy obligation to be done with the consideration on the tax levy by the third Monday in December, and the budget for the next year needs to be approved before the beginning of the next year. That means that the 2010-11, the next year's operating budget needs to be approved in April next year, about 11 months from now. But to get that done, the councils of the past have suggested that a calendar involving input by the elected officials to the mayor, resulting in a memo from the mayor and the council to the staff on what needs to be in the budget, what should be addressed by the budget document, and then a timeline for the 5-year capital, and then the 2-year operating budget to be reviewed by the council to allow for the vetting process that we've heard a little bit about earlier today. Elmhurst community is engaged, is involved, and wants to and appropriately needs to be involved in part of the process. So we present this to you from an overview perspective, give you the calendar, and we'll be posting the PowerPoint on the city website. And with the mayor's call of meetings and eventually the committee chair's calls of meeting, working with the community and the council to identify what needs to be done on all of these fronts. But the gorilla, if you will, the gorilla for the community at the moment is what services need to be provided and how do we pay for those services. Any questions? I take it nobody threw anything or asked any questions while I was speaking. Thank you. Any questions now? Again, don't expect any answers tonight, but did want to present this with the council, and I think it'll be a nice starting point for anybody that's interested in responding to the mayor's call to be considered on the mayor's task force on dealing with the Elmhurst revenue issue.
Thank you, City Manager Borchert. Anybody have any questions? Alderman Healy?
Mr. Borchard, on the general fund chart, the City of Elmhurst General Fund, you show a proposed 2009-10 total revenue and other sources of $48 million. That's almost $10 million over the estimated for 08-09. What caused that big jump? And there's a corresponding jump in expenditures too.
It's probably capital. There's some general obligation bond issues that are built into this budget. We'll explain more as we go forward. In particular, the parking. There's a $10 million. There's $10 million for the parking structure at Larch and First. So that alone addresses a big chunk of the differential you mentioned. And often that is what happens. Capital gets paid for, or at least budgeted for, in 1 year, and then it's paid for by a bond issue that is paying that expenditure back over a 20-year period, typically. So the bigger swings are as a result of capital expenditures.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Alderman Hipskin?
Yes, Alderman. City Manager Borchert mentioned your task force.
Yes, I was going to go to that next.
Go to that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you, Alderman Hipskin. Thanks, City Manager Borchert, for a very thorough overview on what we're going to be faced with, which is a tough situation. Declining revenues, sales tax down $4 million, which is almost our deficit, ironically, as he mentioned earlier. And, you know, we are a town where people move here for services. They don't come here to live on the cheap. We've got senior services that are necessary. We've got an excellent police and fire department that we want to make sure is number one. I see our allies out in the audience there. And in order to do that, we have to pay our bills. So I am going to be calling for community input in the form of a finance task force so that we take in input from the community. People from all different backgrounds, both financial as well as a nice mix. We want some seniors on there. We'd like to get people with ideally some accounting and CPA background, but also just regular people that understand what they value in this community. They can hopefully give us some ideas as to what they see from the outside looking in. Many of you have been up here for a long time, and sometimes when you're kind of focused on the same thing day in and day out, you don't necessarily see something that maybe other people might see. And I'm hoping that by offering a task force partnership with the community, it'll put the community more in touch with what we want and where we want to go in the future and how are we going to get there. So if people would like to contact our city manager's office or mayor's office and put their name in for that, we would like to get that together in the next, ideally in the next month or so. So that we can get them off and working and studying our various issues, and they can come back with some options, and we can value them and see if those options are things that we would like to move forward with. So I think it's important, again, to work with the community and make sure that we're not just looking at this from a bean counter point of view, but also from a quality of life and a people form of view, because we, again, value the services. We value the quality of life that we have here in Elmhurst. So with that, I would like to form that task force. So anybody out there in the audience and anybody that would be willing to give forth their time, I can tell you I did this with the school district when we're looking at their financial problems, and it was a great way to bring people together and really show that the community's involved and is a part of the process. So also we need to look at revenue streams as far as increasing them, economic development, bringing in retail businesses that pay more sales tax. We've got some car dealers that are, one unfortunately closed, Elmhurst Lincoln Mercury. We've got others that are struggling. We just found out that Pontiac is closing. So we've got issues that we need to really watch and look at the replacements for those businesses, and those people also would be looking at, I think, a lot of those issues as well. How we can work intergovernmentally, buying, maybe with our schools and our parks together, so that we could save dollars. So this task force will be looking at a lot of different issues, and how we can go about solving our needs and our financial problems that we are facing. So, and we're not like any other municipality. As I mentioned earlier, we're down in Springfield with about 25 municipalities, and everybody was talking the same issue. And that's why we need to work together and really make sure we're smart, we're prudent, diligent, and but we also can't forget that the taxpayers come first, and they want services too. So we have to be able to come through on our end with those services. Alderman Wagner, got a
Thanks,
question?
Mr. Mayor. Sure. What's your intention in terms of the term limits for that? Just an annual task force every year gets reevaluated in terms of the people on it?
This would be a special task force, I think, for this financial situation that we are in. That would be basically called to order ideally in the next, I'd say 30 days, 60 days, so that they can start to work probably the sooner the better, because as Mr. Borchert pointed out with our calendar, we'd like to try and look at these problems and come up with solutions as soon as possible. So I would say it would probably be about a 4 to 6 month task force that would meet, and we also might be looking at other task forces as well too. But this one I think is priority. It's about dollars, it's about services, and we need to definitely bring the community in and partner with the community as well. So I encourage everybody out there, including those watching, to put a request in. We can use the talent that we have. We have such unique talent in this community that to be able to do this from within, I think, is the right and prudent thing to do. So with that, I've got some next on the agenda would be announcements, and we have. Pardon me?
Other business.
Oh, other business. Actually, that was the part of the Finance Task Force. The other business was introducing the task force and the call to action there. Okay. And again, it's an important item. And then going. Stand corrected. Is there anybody with other business, by the way, that is on the dais that has anything else to bring up business-wise? No? Okay. Announcements, and feel free to chime in if anybody has anything. I'm sorry, City Manager Borchert.
Just 3 quick announcements. Past City Council actually charged the city staff, to work with the Bensenville Fire Protection District relative to the inability of that district to pay its contract fees to the City of Elmhurst for contract fire service. And in that regard, we briefed the previous Public Affairs Safety Committee and Finance Committee on 2 alternatives to allow that area to, should they wish, pay their obligation. A meeting has been scheduled for the city staff to meet with the neighborhood that's unincorporated DuPage, south of Grand Avenue, and basically west of County Line Road. That's, again, that area that's unincorporated, served by Elmhurst Fire, as to their options on how to pay for contract fire services. The city fire chief, finance director, and myself will be meeting with that group and the Bensenville Fire Protection District Board on Wednesday at Conrad Fisher School. Just to announce that meeting information for the council. We'll report back on what the neighborhood would wish to do for themselves, and then for possible implementation of action by the city.
What time?
And I believe.
Orchard, what time on that time?
7 p.m. at Conrad Fisher School Wednesday night. And then the City Council will be receiving, from time to time, I'll just make the announcement once, and you'll be receiving in your packets invites from the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference. That is the council of government, if you will, which Elmhurst is by dues a dues-paying member of, and which receives benefits from their council of government organization of municipal issues. That is the group that sponsored the drive down to Springfield to allow DuPage communities to lobby the legislature on municipal issues. they have from time to time monthly meetings and then special meetings, and in some cases, special information education offerings. Anybody from the Elmhurst City Council that would wish to go to any of those, simply let the mayor's office, manager's office know, and we'll reserve those, make reservations as appropriate for you. But you'll get notices from time to time about those mayors and managers conference meetings. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Tom. Alderman Shea?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Leader and I will be holding a second ward meeting on Tuesday, May 12th from 7 to 9, and it's going to be at the Wagner Community Center, which is the building on the north end of Barron's Park, and we're going to have the mayor with us that night.
Yes. Thanks, Pat. And that's one thing that I will be doing too on a bi-monthly basis, is actually getting together with the aldermen for town hall meetings. I think that's important, and I'm actually glad that Alderman Shea and Alderman Leader took the lead on that. So I thank you, and I look forward to being there to support you guys and gals. Also wanted to mention that Character Counts has their Service Awards event on May 27th at Elmhurst College, and it's a neat day. You know, our town is big on Character Counts, and I'm a big proponent of it because it really shows off the good that we have in this town. And these are all people that have gone above and beyond for various things in our community, and they will be awarded that evening. So I encourage everybody to attend, and probably some of the people will be receiving awards as well too. So also I wanted to mention there's been a little bit of rumor that our city manager may be leaving, and if I'm mayor, as long as I'm mayor, city manager Tom Borchert will have a job here. We had a nice discussion when I took over office. I think he's a fine individual. He's very independent in a lot of his views, and I look forward to working with City Manager Borchert. I think that's it's important that everybody knows that. So, all righty. Anything else?
More my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other announcements? All right. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley, Alderman Wagner. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.